We essentially have a disagreement between the progressive candidates and the moderate candidates about whether or not we want to pursue a universal benefit for higher education and make it a public good, much in the way that K through 12 education is treated as a public good. And I believe, and I think the data bears out, that when you make benefits universal, they are more resilient, they are more robust, they can withstand attacks that come from austerity, that even come from reactionaryism. We see this with Medicaid, and we see this with Social Security, which are incredibly popular across the political spectrum and have withstood many attacks by past administrations to reform them, to privatize them, to reduce them. And so I think people also need to remember that there used to be free public college in the United States in California prior to the election of Governor Ronald Reagan. And then he essentially made that a signature issue in his campaign and really began the end to free public college in California, which has sort of been reduced ever since. And there also used to be free public college in the state of New York in the CUNY system. And so this isn't a new concept for us in the United States, but it's treated as if it's something strange and something we should be skeptical of. You know, the mayor of South Bend has always used this as an attempt to wedge people and say, oh, well, we don't want to give this benefit to millionaires and billionaires. Millionaires and billionaires, first of all, send their children to public colleges at a much lower rate than the rest of the population. You know, as someone who is, you know, I'm queer, and I know that there are a lot of people who sometimes are disowned by their families. And I'm a little disappointed, frankly, to see, you know, the first, you know, openly gay, major, you know, Democratic primary candidate sort of ignore that simple fact that sometimes, you know, LGBTQ folks are disowned from their families. And so if you have a millionaire or billionaire who disowns their LGBTQ child, you know, they won't be able to access public college. But I think the most important point here is that we need to build programs that can resist any attacks on them wherever they come from. One of the things that we saw, you know, we've seen historically, there was a 2018 study that sociologists put out that said that if white Americans see that a benefits program is going to benefit Black Americans, they are less likely to approve of it and to be in favor of it. And one of the ways that you can tackle that kind of sort of racism really is with universal programs where everyone benefits and you don't have either racial resentment or class resentment. Now, I should mention that usually those perceptions by white Americans are completely false. There's lots of data and lots of studies that show that white Americans think that Black Americans and brown Americans benefit from programs like SNAP and TANF at rates that are far lower than they do. White Americans often make up the majority of those programs. But this is a real decision point, I think, for the Democratic Party. And I think going the route of universal benefits is really the way to go. Amy, you also mentioned Warren's plan yesterday.
10 seconds.
Oh, about the student debt cancellation plan. That's something that would benefit the entire economy for all. If we cancel student debt, that's going to benefit everyone, and that's a real strong reason, in my opinion, to do it. There's a study that says $108 billion a year over 10 years boost to the economy if we cancel student debt.